Welcome to the Navigating Life and Leadership podcast. On your journey of life, you will experience many ups and downs, and through it all, you will influence others along the way. Believe it or not, that makes you a leader. Guided by Scripture, our podcast aims to help equip you to navigate the twists and turns of your life while faithfully fulfilling this call of leadership. Welcome to the Navigating Life and Leadership podcast, coming to you from First Baptist Church O'Fallon in O'Fallon, Missouri. I'm your host, Julie Newman. Today we are concluding our episode in our series on financial stewardship. Leading us through the series is Dr. Brandon Kiesling, our Associate Pastor of Gospel Proclamation. And also joining us today is Brandon's wife, Alicia Kiesling. Welcome to the podcast.
It's good to be here.
Thank you.
I'm so excited for this particular episode. Before we start, though, I want to tell our audience that this is a series and all of the episodes build upon each other. So I encourage you to go back, listen to the previous episodes, as well as subscribe so you don't miss future series as we release them. All right. So this episode is actually going to be talking about discussing living as financial stewards. Mm-hmm. And so I'm very excited because I know I will be blessed, and I'm sure our audience will be blessed as well by you sharing some of the principles and how you have lived those out as a couple.
Yeah.
So before we start, I wanted to ask through opening, could you kind of give a recap of the financial stewardship principles that we've already kind of discussed in this series?
Yeah. So, we've had several episodes to this point that kind of went through 5 pillars, and for our viewers to go back and read and watch those would be good. But, we started with this concept of ownership versus stewardship. Mm-hmm. What is the difference? And we kind of contrasted those, where ownership is really the mentality of that everybody kind of holds in our culture today, right, whereas stewardship is a biblical approach, a biblical model, and trying to help people understand the differences. Then from there, once you understand that we are stewards of God's resources, then how do we manage those resources well? And that's through multiple different pillars. One, finance, wise management and planning, looking at budgeting and counting the cost and all that, looking at minimizing debt and even controlling your own expenses. We talked a lot about that in that episode. Making sure that you look at the person in the mirror and try to make sure that you get that person under control in regards to your finances. But then looking at how we are wired to work, how God has uniquely wired us to till the soil, so to speak, yep, but to provide and to maintain and take care of His creation. And then looking at the joy that comes from that as well. And the growth that can come out of finding enjoyment in our work, but then finally, and probably culminating, is what's the point of all of that? Mm-hmm. It's really to find a way to be incredibly generous, because God is a very generous God, and when we are generous with our finances and time and talents, it really reflects Him to the world around us. And so that was one of my favorite episodes that we did.
Yeah, me too. And within that, I believe you also talked about the importance of leaving a legacy.
That's right.
So we're going to be talking about
That's right. Yeah, we'll touch on that as well.
Okay. So I wanted to ask, what got you both, Alicia and Brandon, started on your financial stewardship journey?
Yeah, so we met in 2008. We dated, we got engaged, and I believe it was in 2010? Yeah. We were invited to a conference in Arnold, Missouri. And so we went down as all good conferences do, they have all sorts of giveaways and goodies, and they had a big table just full of books that we could take. And he happened to grab Dave Ramsey's book, The Total Money Makeover. Did you know about? I had no idea who he was or anything about it. And so we brought that home with all of our stuff. And the next day or so, he read the whole book in a day.
Wow.
And I remember going over to his apartment and he said, hey, I think you need to read this. This is really good. And so I'm like, okay. So I read it maybe in 2 days. It was very fast. Wow. And a lot of it just sounded like really great, very easy type things to do. I grew up very frugal in my household. But so anyways, so we thought, okay, we're going to do this. We got married. We moved down to Texas and we didn't have jobs. We had no money. And so we really wanted to kind of start the program and didn't really know how to start. We didn't have jobs and so we were kind of surviving at that time. I was subbing, I was a teacher and trying to get a job. He was a full-time student. We were just trying to kind of make it work. And we kind of to the point where we were having a few little money fights. Our big one was over a 50-cent Sonic drink, which is crazy when you think, a very silly thing. But we were not on the same page with money.
Yep.
We did not really talk about it. We didn't have a plan. We just didn't have anything, we didn't know what we were doing. And so at that point, we looked at each other and we said, okay, we're going to take Financial Peace University. And so we signed up very soon after that. And so we took that in January of 2011, I believe. So that's kind of how we started.
Yeah, and that class actually got us really focused and on the same page and really propelled it. We already kind of had the desire to do it to some degree, but we really didn't have the plan. And so really that's where it kind of started to click, so to speak, and we really put that plan into place and began to work the program, and we found a lot of success in that.
Okay.
Yep.
I would suspect a lot of our audience and people in general can relate to, as a couple, not necessarily being on the same page financially.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's absolutely, they're prevalent in a lot of marriages, whether they're newly married or been married for a long time. Matter of fact, many of the marriage counseling sessions that I have is around fights around finances or other stresses of life.
Yeah.
So it's very prevalent.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to bring up the B word. So what has budget played? What kind of role has budget played in your finances? And what would you say to our audience to encourage them to take steps to becoming better in the budgeting and financial planning area?
Yeah, interestingly enough, this has been a flip on the way we viewed the budget, meaning when we started, she was kind of the
nerd.
The person, yeah. They call them the nerdish people, the people who like spreadsheets and all that stuff.
I had all the spreadsheets.
so-
I
I'm
loved
right there.
it.
So I was not that person. I
I had to drag him to our budget meetings.
And so
yes.
I was the one that I just kind of did what I did, and I wasn't like necessarily completely outrageously a spender, but I just didn't follow a plan and didn't want to follow a plan. And so I was kind of resistant to that part at first, and she did that, but yet the program, one of the big things is not just budgeting, but coming together and agreeing on that plan. And through that process, we began to communicate more. We began to get on the same page. And interesting enough, down the road now, 15 years now, I'm the nerd. I'm the one that has transformed and loved doing it. And oftentimes I end up creating the budget, and she's still looking at it and agreeing on it. And so it's just been an interesting dynamic in our household as far as the way the budget is.
And I
played out.
I think a lot of times people hear the word budget.
Yeah.
I mean, even you said.
Yeah.
And people think like, oh, it's this terrible thing.
Right.
I have to go do the budget, and that means I can't spend money. And that is not true.
Yeah.
Actually, what a budget is you are spending that money on paper before the month begins. If you want to go get coffee, budget it in.
Yeah.
You can go get coffee. If you want to go on a trip, budget it in and go on a trip. So it's just putting what you're going to already spend your money on. It's not something that, has to be this bad, terrible thing. Yeah. For me, it gives me freedom, because before I didn't know, and I would go to the store and think, oh, do we have enough money? Can I buy this shirt? Is this too expensive? Can we get the shoes for the kids? All the things. And now it's on paper. I know we have this much budgeted for clothing, and I'm allowed to spend that much for clothing.
Yeah.
And I don't have, it doesn't have to be a fight. I don't have to be like thinking, oh no, like, do we have enough or whatever? Yeah. Like, we've already decided I can spend that. And so it really gives me freedom.
And even, and this is, I think, a big misnomer with the budget as well, is that, let's say we needed a little bit more in a particular line a month. we have the ability to come back together, make adjustments, and agree on those adjustments. And so again, it's not constricting. A budget is a lot of people think it's constricting. It doesn't allow me to do anything. And really what it does is it provides, as she said, freedom and communication and just the ability to work together. And so it's just been a really good thing for us.
Well, I must say, I agree with you on budget. I only use that terminology just because I know that's what a lot of people think.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of why we wanted to talk about that, because that is seeming to be a prevalent attitude toward budgeting.
And there's a lot of different ways to budget. I mean, we started with literally a piece of paper and a pencil and just wrote it down, and you get spreadsheets, and then there's all types of apps and programs, free or paid for. So there's lots of different ways to do it. We always tell people, find the way that works best for you. And do it.
That's great advice. Okay, so I know you shared with me beforehand that you both have paid off a considerable amount of debt, and you're working to try and pay off your final debt, which is your mortgage. And you really started that early on in your marriage. So can you tell us a little bit about making that decision and your commitment and how that's impacted your life?
Yeah, I think really what I'd like to tell our audience on this point more than anything else is that it was a commitment that we both made together. And I always use, when I'm doing financial coaching with people, I always use the analogy of a horse pulling a carriage or a wagon. You know, that horse average, can by itself pull about 8,000 pounds. But then when you put two horses together, it's not 16,000. It's actually, they can pull 32,000. Right. And so it exponentially increases their ability when two are pulling together in the same direction, both with a single goal, with a single focus, single trajectory. And so all that to say, that's a perfect analogy for when two come together and work at this together, committed to it together, and focus. And so when we did this, again, it was not like overnight. We worked at this, and we built this kind of teamwork through the process. But we both made a decision early on. We didn't like where we were. We wanted to fix it. We wanted to find ways to get towards the goals that we had made together. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of things we've sacrificed over the years to pay off the debt. We had, about 32,000 in student loans. So we paid off in about three or so years. Wow. And it was a lot of sacrifice. We did not make much money. He was in seminary, and, but we kind of decided together that we're going to do what we're going to do. And this is our decision. And I mean, honestly, we would go out to eat with our friends. But we wouldn't eat. We would just get waters because we wanted to hang out with our friends. Right. We didn't have a ton of money. We could have afforded to go out to eat, but we decided we're not going to do that because we wanted to pay off this debt. And so we decided, and that led to a lot of conversations with friends trying to pay for us. And we're like, no, that is not the point. We're fine. We've just made this decision that we're going to do this together, and we're going to kind of go all in on it. And I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, and the discipline, you're exercising a lot of discipline. And I would say, using a word that you mentioned earlier, when you pay off that debt, that even gives you more freedom. Yeah. With the budget and then paying off consumer debt really gives you a lot more freedom as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in our last episode, you talked about generosity. So where does generosity come into the equation when people are very focused on debt reduction?
Yeah, we have this conversation constantly, again, with the coaching that we do and just conversations with folks inside and outside the church. When you're trying to you have a goal in front of you, you want to do whatever you can to meet that goal as quickly as possible. And then the natural thing is, well, I'm going to stop giving or lessen giving in order to put more towards this. And the reality is that yes, that may potentially be a math thing that works, but the reality is we're made to give. God, we talked about this in the episode before. And so God's wired us for that particular purpose. And so we tell people, put it at the top of your budget. Make that the first thing, not the last. And I can't tell you how many times I've talked to folks that said, I don't have enough money to give. Well, that's because it's at the wrong side of your budget. Turn it over and put it at the top, because that's where it belongs. And so if you do that, then I've seen it so many times, and it happened with us as well. When we started to put giving at a priority in our life, God just provides. And it's different for everybody. I'm not going to say that he magically makes every problem go away, but it just happened over and over and over again, where we saw these little blessings that God provided all along the way that we just couldn't explain any other way other than he's just taking care of us. And so giving is an integral part of every step of the journey. Stewardship is not just about collecting a bunch of money. It's using God's resources in a way that honors him, and giving is a part of that.
And now it's been fun. We're starting to teach our kids, about being generous and giving. And we have, for a couple months now, in our budget, put some generosity money, I think we're calling it, into our budget in kind of a big pool. And that's been fun with the kids, because we've kind of, as a family, said, hey, we have this money. If we see a need, let's do something about it. And so, one of my kids came home from school and said, hey, Mom, we're doing this thing, and we're collecting coats and different things. And so, what can we do? And I'm like, hey, we have this money. What can we use? And so that was very fun to have kind of them decide what to use, how much money to spend and all that, and be able to get. And so that has been fun now to try to teach our kids, even now, even at this age, to be generous.
Yeah, bringing that into the whole family and teaching them young so that they understand those principles. That's great. So when you mentioned about building and leaving a legacy, and so one of the financial, which is one of the principles we talked about. So in that episode, we discussed that leaving a legacy is more than just leaving an inheritance for your children. What does that component look like regarding financial stewardship in your home? Yeah,
well, it actually just plays off a little bit of what she said. I think one of the things we're trying to do is not just help them become wealthy, or it's the idea of helping them to be able to be a manager, to learn how to be a manager, because the reality is, one day most of us that have done well with our finances will be in a place where we hand something over to the next generation financially, and one of the most destructive things a person can do is to hand a big lump sum of finances, money, to a person, no matter what age, that doesn't have that training on how to manage it well. It can be destructive.
Oh,
it really
absolutely.
can. And it's happened over and over again. There's all kinds of stories. And so part of the legacy is we want to instill in our children the generosity. We want to instill in them not going into debt because the borrower is slave to the lender. We want to instill in them the biblical principles of counting the cost and making sure that you're thinking ahead on things. And so all of those types of things, that's what legacy is about. It's not just passing on an inheritance. We want to raise up the children who ultimately will continue these principles and then pass them down to their kids, and hopefully pass down to the next generation as well. And so it's all encompassing, making sure that we're teaching them how to manage like God wants them to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to add on that, Alicia?
I don't think so. Okay. I also think not necessarily for our kids, but I feel more comfortable. We're doing all this planning now, and we are going to have, we're going to be fine when we retire, when we're growing older. And so our kids are not going to have to think about, we have this much, whatever, and what to do, like the money's run out. Right. And so for me, I don't know, a lot of women think like the safety, aspect of that, but it helps me that we are also still taking care of our kids because we're taking care of us. Yeah. And so later on, they don't have to necessarily worry about that stuff. Yeah. They can worry about taking care of mom and dad and spending time and all that stuff. And so that also helps me.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. Okay, so you mentioned a lot of these principles seem to be countercultural, really not what the culture in today's society does. And it's very foreign to a lot of people. And I suspect some people in our audience, and that's one of the reasons we're doing this. So, what would you say the secret to being able to live out financial stewardship and these principles are, especially in a world that is lives contrary to these principles?
I think the comparison game can be really destructive, especially with the finance stuff. I mean, if you look on Instagram and Facebook, you're going to see someone's at Disney World.
Right.
Someone else is on this big trip. Somebody bought this brand new nice car. Somebody else did this or has that or did, it's very easy to look on Facebook or look on social media and think, oh man, I wish I had that. And it kind of can send you down into a spiral, For me, I mean, that's happened all the time. I see people doing things. I'm like, why? For a second, I think, why are we not doing that? Why can't we go to Disney? Why can't we can?
Right.
Honestly, we can. We could go to Disney today and it would be fine. But we have decided we're not doing that. And there's nothing wrong with Disney. There's nothing wrong with trips. But we, as we kind of said before, like we have plans and we have goals. And this is what we have kind of decided. Right. And so we've decided we're going to be patient on some of those things. And but it's really hard when you look out and you see people doing all these things. But I try to remind myself, I do not know what those people are going through.
Right.
I do not. Maybe they're in crippling debt.
Yes.
Maybe they're so unhappy. I mean, you just don't know. And so to compare yourself to people that you just don't know what's going on in their lives, you just can't do that. And so you really need to remind yourself, focus on yourself, worry about yourself. Don't think about what other people are doing. And again, we've kind of decided what we're doing kind of with our life. And so just to be content where you are, I think it's so important. It's hard. It's very hard, but it's important.
Yeah. And I think that again, talking about how to live these principles out, they have to actually become values that you instill in you very deeply. Because if you don't decide on these and make them values, then you start seeing these people having fun and you say, well, okay, one time won't hurt, and you'll start to compromise these values. And so if they truly become values and you deeply embed them in your lives, then that kind of filters out all these negative decisions, financially speaking, that we can make. And so, for instance, that value of not going into debt, like that's a value that we have adopted, and we're going to do our very best to not only get out of the debt that we're in as quickly as possible, like we mentioned, but we're going to try to keep our kids from going into debt ever. And so we're passing that value on to them. And so I think the secret to living it out in a counterculturally is to embracing these as truly the biblical principles and making them values that you hold highly and hold incredibly close, and remember them, because you're going to be tempted multiple times throughout the journey to give up or do this or adjust, and you've got to go back to those values and say, who are we, what do we want to be, and where are we going, and that kind of guides the ship moving forward.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree, and I like that attitude, because once you make a decision, it's not about re-looking at that decision. It's already kind of made, so you don't have to keep churning.
That's right.
Okay. So as we close this episode, can you give our audience maybe a few small steps that they can begin right away to begin their journey toward financial stewardship, or just anything that you think would be helpful for them as they begin to try and live out these principles?
I think the budget's so very important. So if you haven't ever budgeted, I would suggest trying it. We use Every Dollar. It's the Ramsey budget. There are tons of them out there. And again, like we said, I mean, you can get a plain piece of paper and just write it down. Just write down all your expenses, zero it out, meaning everything that you bring in, you're spending. And so just have a plan for the month. And the first time you do it, it will not work out. I'm telling you right now, you will you will budget $50 for groceries when you need 400, you know? And so, but do it the next month, it'll be a little better. And then the next month, it'll be a little better. I'm telling you, like, we've found so much peace in doing the budget and having this plan and knowing what we're spending. So I would start there.
I think the big word that comes to my mind is accountability, and being willing to allow someone else to speak into this and walk with you. Again, because we're talking about the comparison game, we're talking about the temptations that come along the way, and if we're trying to do this on our own, it becomes very difficult to maintain over the long haul. And so, and we talk about like married couples doing it. Obviously, that's the accountability there with you if you're both on the same page. But even those that aren't married, we talk about getting an accountability partner, whether it's a friend, a family member, close relative, somebody that holds these same values. You want somebody that can speak into it, that is aligned with you, but that can hold you to these things. Because again, when the rubber hits the road and you're tempted, you want to have someone pull you back before you do any damage. And so I talk to people all the time. If you're walking this journey on your own, then you're basically setting yourself up for failure. You've got to bring other people into this. And we love to meet with folks. Part of my, I really believe part of my calling is to kind of coach people through this process. And I do it more and more regularly as I've been here at the church. And so I just absolutely love playing that role, helping, guide people along the way. But again, it doesn't have to be a pastor, just somebody that has the same values and has the gumption to be able to say, hey, I think you need to do it this way.
Yeah.
And to speak the truth in the situation that you're in. So.
Okay. Before we close, I'm going to give you one last opportunity. Is there anything else that came to mind that maybe you wanted to share or that I didn't specifically ask that you think is important for our audience to hear?
Well, ultimately, as we're talking about stewardship, the reality I want to go back to is why do we do all this? Again, we do this to honor God. To make sure that we use what He has entrusted to us in a way that yes, He provides for us, and that's definitely part of it, but that we can bring Him glory and we can point others to Him. I can't tell you how many times, and that's why I love the generosity aspect so much. When we're talking about that, if all of God's people were to take this seriously, to get out of debt, provide that margin, and if everybody were to do it together, you're talking about world-changing stuff. Like if everybody were outrageously generous towards as many people as possible, and they had the margin to do it, it would be transformative in a community across the whole region. If everybody would do it together, that's the challenge is that we've got to take it one person at a time and get people on, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to walk people down this journey. But if everybody would take this seriously, I really believe God's kingdom would expand in so many ways that we can't even imagine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Brandon, for leading us through this series. Thank you, Alicia, for joining us and sharing your personal story. I think it really resonates, and I think it's going to be a great example for people to follow. So thank you both.
Got to be here.
And thank you for joining us for this episode of the Navigating Life in Leadership podcast. Remember, until our paths cross again, remember to keep God as your true north, and He will direct your path. Where God guides, He provides. If you want to learn more, or you're looking for a new church home, we invite you to First Baptist Church O'Fallon. Information is available on our website at www.firstofallon.com, or you can contact us directly by emailing leadership@firstofallon.com. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you won't miss future episodes.